Peter Hart.
This is Nick Baker.
This is the O'Neill British Windsurfing World Cup.
And you're going to see some hot slalom action with the Brits thrashing the rest of the world in a windsurfing extravaganza.
In the shore break.
In the shore break. Watch the shore break.
Peter will be in the shore break.
He might not be. Welcome to the British O'Neill Windsurfing World Cup. We're here in Brighton, home of fish and chips, rock and all that sort of thing. You probably don't associate it with windsurfing, but this is one of the meanest places in the world for this sort of discipline. And it's slalom. Heats of 8 go out, the top 4 go through to the next round. So in the early rounds you've got to play a bit of a safe game in these difficult conditions and then go faster and faster as you get through to the last heats. Now, if you want to run with the big dogs, you've got to get off the porch because out there it's mean.
Mean indeed, and we asked a local sailor how to cope with this infamous shore break.
What's the secret to getting out here then? I mean, for a lot of the foreigners, it's they're not used to seeing anything like this. If you could give them a couple of tips, what would you say?
Well, yeah, we get a lot of conditions like this on the south coast. The thing is, to wait, it doesn't matter if you wait 10 minutes. You've just got to time the sets because you get a big set and then you get a smooth patch. So it's really important just to stay and wait, and you feel silly that you're not getting out there. But the penalties are so much if you just miss out once, and it doesn't matter what your standard is, you get munched and break your mast, you're out of your heat. So you just got to be really patient, carry the board high, and when the wave breaks, you throw it over the back of the wave, jump on real quick, and pump like mad, really.
Is it quite fun watching some of the big guys struggle?
Well, it is, but then you know it's going to be your turn, so...
The town of Brighton, on the south coast of England, plays host for the 4th year in succession to the O'Neill Sportswear British Windsurfing World Cup in 1994. Built in the Victorian times as a holiday resort for the people of London and the home counties, new developments in the marina are preparing Brighton for the 21st century, but it still retains its historical charm, such as the Palace Pier. This is one of 2 remaining, with the second having been destroyed by storms and currently rumoured to be the possible new home of middleweight boxing world champion Chris Eubank. The Grand Hotel, now rebuilt after the Conservative government, was nearly destroyed after an IRA bomb devastated the building in 1988. The narrow walkways and picturesque shops attract tourists from all over the world. Tourism is Brighton's main industry. Perhaps most famous of all, the Brighton Pavilions, now fully restored and the venue for the opening ceremony by the Mayor of Brighton.
I'd like to welcome you all to this town and assure you that we have already made arrangements for very strong winds to come from the southwest.
The promised strong winds for 1994 did not deliver at the first event back in 1992, and a young, fresh-faced Nick Baker was steadily improving. Well into his second year on the tour, he finished the 1992 season 11th overall. 1992 might have been without wind, but the 1993 O'Neill Sportswear British Windsurfing World Cup was far from windless. Stonking southwesterly winds hammered the little town of Brighton, and the sailors were in their element. K66 Nick Baker was steadily rising through the rankings and finished the 93 season 9th overall. Despite the atrocious conditions, SA2 Michael Cousins of South Africa edged out Nick Baker to win his first PBA event and part of the $20,000 prize money for this slalom event. In the women's, Jutta Müller of Germany and runner-up on the 1993 World Tour to Australian Jessica Crisp took the first place honours. Michael Cousins expressed his opinions about the local conditions in Brighton.
The conditions are so radical now. With the rain you can't see anything, so I didn't want to push it and fall and lose it. So a fourth is as good as a first because I won it overall, so I'm happy.
Nick Baker was not so lucky, however. The event did not go well for him. He wasn't happy.
Well, it started off not too bad. I made a few mistakes in the middle. Overdid it on one of the races, did a few too many laps. The last race I was going pretty well, fell off on the jibe mark, so I made a few mistakes, but there's some good sailors here. I was quite happy with seconds, not too bad. Next year hopefully it'll be first. We had good wind, good weather, good competition. Hopefully everyone will be back, maybe direction better next year.
Registration 1994. Nick Baker was back and currently second place overall, having displaced Sweden's Anders Bringdahl. The top women were here, Australia's Jessica Crisp and from Germany, Andrea Hoppner. Tour manager Jeff Hayhurst held the first skippers meeting, but with very little wind in day one, most of the sailors just continued rigging. With big southwesterly winds predicted, sailors would rig as many sails as possible in the event of equipment losses both on the course and in the shore break. Local sailor Dave White continued doing his rigging, and a strong Swedish contingent including Peter Forslin and many others.
The O'Neill British Windsurfing World Cup. Might be a small event, but we have some big names here. From Sweden, Anders Bringdahl. Always seem to be fighting with him, he's always in the top few positions. From France, Fabien Pendle. He's always knocking on my doors too. From England, Jamie Hawkins. Always seem to be pushing. Another one I'm starting to worry about actually is my younger brother, Anthony. In the women, we have Jessica Crisp from Australia, last year's Women's World Champion. From Germany, Jutta Müller, currently leading this year. And many more.
Production board world speed record holder Dave White, also here in Brighton, going out to test. We spoke with Klaus Michel, chief protest judge for the PBA World Tour, who explained in a little more detail what this classic slalom course was to be.
This is the course diagram for the Brighton slalom here. We have a start outside between a boat and a mark. They go with a 4-minute sequence of red, yellow and green flags. They go over the starting line and then downwind along a slalom course around mark number 1, 2, 3 and 4. And then they go through this mark and another boat which forms the finish line, because we have to make the finish line a little bit further outside. The shore break's too big so that we can't make a finish line between the beach and the buoy. So this is the finish, and they just go slalom around the course. It takes them probably about 4.5 or 5.5 minutes to go over the course.
Eventually, the winds that had been forecast kicked in and racing got underway. And straight away, Sweden's Anders Bringdahl posted his intentions, storming through the field in the early heats of round 1. In each heat of slalom race, there are 8 sailors. At the end of the race, be it a classic downwind or figure of 8 course, the top 4 sailors from the heat progress through to the next round until the final is eventually reached. In the final, it's every man for himself, as points are awarded according to the finishing position. The winner gets 0.7 points, second place 2, third place 3, and so on. At the end of the week, the points are added up, and the sailor with the least points is the winner. One sailor hoping to do well is British sailor Jamie Hawkins. Jamie has seen plenty of World Tour action this year, and with the home crowd behind him, he should do well here in Brighton. Another sailor to lay down the gauntlet in the early rounds was Nick Baker, as he flew through the early heats in the choppy conditions, so familiar to him. Round 1, Heat 13, the first semi-final, and the green flag goes up. It's Anders Brindle who screams into the lead, leaving the rest of the fleet in his wake. Fellow Swede Peter Forslund S471 would also like to get into that final, so he sheets in and tries to edge through the pack, but it's all to no avail. The second semi-final is dominated by Britain's K96 Jamie Hawkins, pushing hard through the gnarly conditions, aiming for a spot in the final. Meanwhile, it's disaster for Edwin Jong from Belgium, as he crashes out, promoting Nick Keeling to first place, with favourite Nick Baker hot on his heels. Baker's experience shows through, as he's soon past Keeling and settles down to a comfortable first place. Revelling in the conditions, Nick Baker cruises over the swells, confident of a place in the first round final, where he'll meet arch-rival Anders Brindle for the first time in this event. So join us after the break for the first round final of the 1994 British Windsurfing World Cup here in Brighton. Sweden and top British sailor Nick Baker through to the first round final. The crowds that lined the beach were in for a battle of the giants. As the 20-knot winds swept along the coast, the race got underway and straight into an early but narrow lead went Anders Brindle, using his weight and slalom expertise to its maximum in the demanding swell. But soon to catch up was Nick Baker, using his local knowledge of the conditions to make up for his lack of bulk. It's a neck-and-neck race all the way down to the first mark, both sailors taking it to the limit, but as they approach the mark, Brindle has the lead, but only by a small margin. Coming into the mark, Brindle has the lead as Nick Baker tries to take a wide line in order to keep his board speed up. But suddenly, it's all over for Anders. He lays down the sail too far, takes an unwanted swim in the cold waters, handing the lead to Nick Baker. Anders has no hope of victory, but every point counts, so he desperately tries to get his rig out of the water and back in the race. Back at the front, Nick Baker can afford to ease off, knowing that only a mistake would rob him of victory. Another Brit to gain from Anders Brindle's crash was K96 Jamie Hawkins, but he nearly thought it was all over, away at the mark with a poor jibe. But he's quick to recover and only loses one place to Australian Steve Allen. By now, Brindle has made a superb recovery and is up to 5th place, and is pushing hard as he sheets in and out-drags both Edwin Jong and Jamie Hawkins. By the end of the race, Brindle has clawed his way back to 2nd. We asked Nick Baker how the race went for him.
The day's been going pretty well. I was on 6.3 sail, which is sort of the biggest slalom sail we'd ever use. It was good up until sort of semi-finals and finals. Suddenly the wind just got up and I was basically very overpowered. I went down the first reach, not a bad start. Actually, we were all pretty late on the start, but I was pretty much with Anders. He was my biggest worry in the heat. So I sort of stuck with him. We had a good race down the first reach, sort of neck and neck. Went into the first jibe mark, he sort of went in first, I was upwind, and he laid the sound down too far and sort of fell in. So I thought make advantage of that and take it easy around the rest of the course, in which I did. It was very, very choppy. Good swell, good waves, but it's good racing, hard work.
With only 8 women at the event, a different scoring system had to be used. All the women would compete in rounds made up of 3 races in which they all sailed. The winner of each race getting 0.7 points, 1 point for 2nd, 2 for 3rd, and so on. At the end of the 3 races, the points were added up, giving a winner for that round. The 2 big names to watch out for are women's world champion KA15 Jessica Crisp and German star Jutta Müller, sail number G680. Setting the pace and straight into the lead, it's Jessica Crisp, the small Aussie goes well in almost any conditions. After the first round of slalom, it was Jessica Crisp on the top spot, but Jutta Müller was right behind her, ready to pounce if she made the slightest mistake. So what actually is O'Neill? O'Neill. Who are they? What are they? And is the legend true about Old Man Jack? The man who invented summer on the inside, the modern day wetsuit, as we know it today. We caught up with the enigmatic Jack O'Neill visiting the UK for the first time in many years. He gave us a rare insight into how it all started and where it all came from.
I had moved back. I used to live on the coast in Southern California, and then I got away from it. And in '49, I moved back to San Francisco, and they've got some great waves there, and I got hooked on it right away. But it was frigid water. When that water drops below 49, 50 degrees, then you dive under and you get an ice cream headache. So what I did, there was still a lot of surplus stuff from World War II, and I used to haunt the surplus shops and using the old Navy frogman suits and things, but they wouldn't, they'd come apart in the surf. So I run on to some unicellular foam, and I put that under my bathing suit. And that and a girl's bathing hat would make the difference in 49-degree water, whether I could handle it or not. And then it just kind of evolved from there. I made a vest out of it, but because it didn't have much tensile strength, I put some plastic on. It was kind of straitjacket-like material, but it kept you warm, and we cut it carefully. But the plastic would make the water run off because you wouldn't have that cooling from evaporation. So, and it's just been one thing and another. Just every year we come out with something different. And now that we're doing some clothing licensing stuff and such, we have enough to take and afford to make some molds. So we've been able to mold the neoprene and make it more flexible and make it lighter. So it just, things just keep coming. Actually, boards were our main thing. Boards were 90% of the business. I got it. It was just this little thing. I got a load of balsa wood in and glued up the blanks and got a Phil Edwards from Southern California. He was one of the top shapers. At that time, there was Dale Velzy and Hobie. They were the two manufacturers of surfboards. A lot of kids doing things in their garage and such. And then I opened my shop, and there were 3 shops in California. And I used to borrow their top shaper, Phil Edwards. I used to glue up some blanks and fly Phil up from Southern California. And that was a big deal in those days to get on an airplane and fly up and shape some blanks. Well, we've been very active in both surfing and windsurfing. We started out in the surfing, and I remember when Hoyle Schweitzer came around to the show and says, "Hey, O'Neill, I got a surfboard with a sail on it." And I thought, gee, what a kooky thing to do. I hope you don't get in my way. But I'm just amazed at how far it goes. And like I say, my daughter has devoted her time to it for many years. Yeah, it came around later. I didn't get to, I didn't have as much time windsurfing, but I enjoy it and ride a few waves with it and such.
Back to the action in Brighton as the second slalom elimination reaches the semi-final stages. A well-timed start by Anders Bringdahl gives him more speed over the start line as he quickly passes the rest of the fleet. However, coming up from behind is an on-form Fabien Pendel, F3 from the south of France. Pendel has obviously made the right board and sail choice as he streaks ahead of Bringdahl in the once again choppy conditions. Coming into the jibe, Pendel has a significant lead over Bringdahl, but Bringdahl is famous for his lightning-fast lay-down jibes. With the pressure really on, Pendel makes a classic error, laying down his sail too far in the rough water and takes a swim. No problems for Bringdahl though as he powers into the reach. With a good lead now on, Anders can afford to relax a little and cruise home to secure a place in the final. The second semi-final sees Nick Baker in action. Straight across the line, and he's powering his way past the rest of the fleet. No problems for Nick. Nick dives across the finish line. He's in the final. The wind's yo-yoing. It's up for the final. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to the O'Neill Sportswear British Windsurfing World Cup from Brighton. The second leg final was breathtaking, and Anders Bringdahl talks us through his battle with Nick Baker.
Well, the beginning of the final was, it has been the broadest leg of the course, the first run down to the first buoy, which means it starts, you don't know if you want to be on top, if you want to be on bottom, and on top of that the starting line is extremely short, so it doesn't leave you a lot of options to be able to go in any direction, right? And I had a fairly decent start. I was maybe a second or two behind, but I was on the right side of a wave, and I went straight into the lead very quickly, just to have Nick power over the top of me. Obviously, he had I think he had a little bit better start than me, but had bad luck with the waves, but then got the wave same as me, and then was in a better position because it was higher up, so he came over the top of me. And to begin with, I was very surprised because not a lot of people do that to me. But then later on, I took a fairly relaxed jibe, first jibe in second position, sheeted in on the way out, and I found out that I had quite a lot of speed advantage going out, and caught right up to him, jibe together, and then again on the way in he pulls away again a little bit, which means he's actually going faster than me coming in, which I didn't expect to begin with, but he went really strong coming in, and I guess I had a little bit too big of a fin, so I had too much drag in the water. I wasn't as efficient as he was, and had to muscle it through a bit more. But then again, I gained going out due to that setup, so from being the second last buoy quite far behind, actually overtook him on the short leg out, which I was quite pleased with that. And jibe first, we had it was a very tight jibe. I don't know if I really was in the right to do that, but nobody really got hurt, and no big deal. It was very tight. The rule is if the buoy is here, I'm driving underneath him. I have to get my nose in front of his to have the right to jibe. And I think I got that, but I'm not sure. It is a little bit like this, right? And obviously, it depends on what side of the apple you're talking. We went around and we didn't have any problems, so off we went on the last leg basically. And again, Nick then chopped up above me, coming into the finish line, where I anticipated being lower than what it actually is. And with the swell, it's hard to see the boat and the finish line. Suddenly I was underlaying the mark and had to start pointing up. And then he came in from behind and went straight up on top, and there we were we're 50, 60 meters off the line basically, and pushing as much as we could, both of us, side by side. And I got a chop wrong and just went hallelujah in the sky and went, I don't know what happened, but I ended up with a big hole in my sail and finished 6th, so that was it all over.
Big drama for Anders, but meanwhile back out on the water, the women were racing. Out in the chop, it was a battle royal between KA-15, Australia's Jessica Crisp, and G680, Germany's Jutta Müller. However, G54, Team Germany's Andrea Hoppner, was also having a good race, with 2 third places in the first 2 rounds. Crisp and Müller were fighting for first place, with the little Aussie taking first place for the first and second leg. The top 3 places were pretty well decided, but the rest of the action was between France and England. Helen Purin was up against Kate Hoffacker, Sam Metcalf, Christine Amos and Eva Bugler. Nick Baker's 94 season was a great success for him. He was enjoying fame and fortune in Brighton. But lying second on the tour, how did he feel? He had 3 more events coming up, Zilt, La Torche and the big finals in Aloha. Was he a happy man?
Yeah, I'm very happy actually. I can't really say how happy I am. My goal this year was to be around the top 5. Second, obviously I can't grumble at that. If I can hold in this position, I would be very happy.
Right, I mean, this is the test now. You've got to the number 2, but the big 3 are coming up. You know, there's big points, a lot of money at stake. This is where it's really the real test for you. You're going to have people snapping at your heels.
Yep, that's for sure. We've got obviously we've got Brighton, which we're here at the moment. It's a very small event as far as points go. So basically, I'm here for training. Obviously, I'd love to win it because it's my hometown and for my sponsors, and the Sega sponsoring the event, so that's good for me. But the main important ones coming up are Silt, La Torche, Germany and France, and to the last one in Hawaii. Obviously, there's lots of good sailors. There's not only a few. It's not like you're fighting against 1 or 2 or 3. In the top 30, you know, all very, very fast. It's who's sailing well in a day, and basically I just got to keep my fingers crossed, keep training, and hopefully it all goes well. I've had a good year so far. Hopefully it carries on.
What sort of discipline are you having to learn now? I mean, you're up at the top. It's a whole new mental discipline. You can't let yourself be phased. You can't let this success, you know, get you and scare you. I mean, is there anything you can do, or is it just to suck it and see?
Yeah, I've tried not to think too much about it. Everyone said, like you said, you know, you must be stoked. I am very happy, but I don't. You know, it's not really sunk in maybe until the end of the year. If I ended up in this position, I'd be, you know, really stoked then. I try not to think about the position I'm in, just about getting some consistent results. I've had some good results all year. My equipment, I changed to Fnatic RT this year, new board and sail sponsors. Working very well. They're supporting me very well. All my sponsors are. So, you know, I can't, you know, expect any more from there. I've just got to try and keep my head down, not think about the pressure too much, and just try and keep it up. All right. Two 2-0 to me. Anders already out there. Gonna go and see if we can make it 3-0.
But first, let's have a look at Anders Bringdal's semi-final. Straight across the line with the green flag, and all was looking good. No problems at that all-important turn 1. F55 Hervé Samaron on the heels of Anders, followed by Nick's younger brother, K77 Ant Baker. He'd had a great race in Paros a few weeks before, but was desperately fighting off a flu virus. K96 Jamie Hawkins was pushing his way up the pack, along with two Scandinavians, N44 Vidar Jensen and S471 Peter Forslin. At the rear, K372 Barry Edgington. By turn 3, Anders was streaking ahead of the rest of field, and so far, no mistakes. But he wasn't at the final yet. Jamie Hawkins had smashed his way up to second place, with Ant Baker hot on his heels. A clear pass for Bringle through into the final. Nick Baker's round 3 semi-final was just as bad weather conditions. The light was poor and the chop was giving everyone a hard time. Along with Nick Baker was KV11 Finian Maynard, KA0 Steve Allen, H3 Edwin Young, K53 Jason Gilbert, and holding up the Norwegian torch, N149 Morten Tonneson, as well as N41 Alexander Boxill. Just across the finish line, and it was another final with the two big guns, Bringle versus Baker. Green flag was up on an overcast round 3 final, and the challenge was on. S10 Anders Bringle was 2 races down on Nick Baker and was desperate for a win. Straight into the lead, and again it's nearly game over for Bringle in turn 1, but he recovers. K66 Nick Baker goes wide. Bringle is dominating this race, and by turn 2 he has a substantial lead over Baker. This time though, Baker goes tight into the turn and is gaining that lost ground. The long reach to turn 3, and Anders is sailing a masterful and faultless race. However, a first place for Bringle will not be enough to ensure victory, and he would be counting on at least a 4th and 5th leg. Wide into the turn goes Bringle, but try as he might, Nick Baker cannot get to the Swede's back door. After a well-fought battle, Baker concedes and Bringle takes a well-deserved first place. The battle is now on, but it's also a physical battle. The conditions are testing the sailors right to the limit, and they love it.
Choppy out there, huh?
How was that?
Very bumpy. Very bumpy. Nice to get one at last. You know, 3rd time is hit, they say, you know?
3rd time lucky indeed, and after the break we'll have a look at what else is going on in Brighton to entertain and amuse the crowds and sailors on the 94 World Tour. Welcome back to Brighton. Maui in Hawaii may be a big windsurf event, but that is it. Brighton offers the crowds a whole host of other activities.
do all elephants have grey trunks? Because they all belong to the same swimming club.
After a troubled season, we were granted an interview with newly retired Britt Dunkerbeck. After 9 years on the tour, how had it come to this?
Well, basically I've had enough of competition sailing, of sitting around on the beaches just waiting for wind and wasting a lot of time that way. That's how I got to think about it as well, because we were wasting a lot of time. And I have a lot of other different ambitions that I still want to do with my life, and if I wait a long time, maybe till I'm 28 or 30, there's a lot of things that I won't be able to do anymore that I might want to try and do now.
I mean, talk us through it. What is the future for you? What do you want to do?
Well, right now it's pretty open. It's all out in the open. I want to take this year off and just relax and maybe just go home and live at home for a little bit that I haven't done in a long time. And probably by the beginning of next year, I'll know what I want to do.
So it's just really, it's almost like a burnout, really. It's 9 hard years you've had, and suddenly you've realised that I've had enough.
It caught up with me, yeah. It's not that I want to be irresponsible and just stop racing halfway through the year. It was just, if you don't have the ambition behind it anymore and you want to get that number one place, you're basically wasting your time there. And I did not have it anymore.
Have you talked with your brother about this? What does he say?
Yeah, I've talked to my family, my whole family about it, and they're all behind me. I mean, if you're not happy doing what you're doing, even though you're earning a lot of money, I don't think it's the point of life.
As Jamie and Nick sat on the beach waiting for their semi-finals, Anders was out on the water, looking for a passage to the round 4 finals with the aim of making the score 2 rounds each. First across the line again, and first into the turn, it was Anders Bringdahl. Off to turn 2 with F3 Fabian Pendle knocking on his back door, along with Steve Allen and Barry Edgington. Disaster, and he's down. A huge lead is quite literally being gobbled up before his very eyes, and Steve Allen pounces. Double disaster, and KAO is down as well. The Frenchman, Fabien Pendle, storms into the lead as Allen and Bringdahl struggle in the chop. It's all too much for Pendle, and he's struggling as well. Steve Allen is up to second, and Bringdahl takes a tight inside line and uses his superior strength and speed to chase the leaders. By turn 4, Bringdahl has moved himself up to second and soon overtakes the Frenchman with ease for that all-important, confidence-boosting first place. The weather's up, and it's the round 4 final. An amazingly fast start with Bringdahl and Baker being clocked at speeds of up to 35 knots. Bearing in mind the world speed record on flat water is 46 knots, the boys were quite literally flying. Baker was off to a good start, but KAO Steve Allen was holding the first place position. But by the first jibe mark, Baker had regained the lead and was off to turn 2. As Baker went off to turn 2, Brindle was in second, with the Australian Allen in third. Baker had opened up a commanding lead and on his way to the second jibe mark. But turn 2 was not the result. Disaster for Baker as he rounds turn 4. In the background, you can see the rest of the pack rounding the correct turn. A furious Baker headed back to the shore break. It was all over for Baker. All Anders had to do was hold on to his first place position, but not as easy as it looks in these testing conditions. A massive victory jump from Bringle, and almost disaster. Another first for the Swede would mean 2 first places each, but Baker still holds the lead by a very slim margin of just 1 point. Anders was delighted, Nick Baker couldn't believe it. The conditions were rough and
gnarly. Probably one of the worst ones so far. I stuffed up my foot in the process. Not very nice. I had a very good start, and we had a fantastic first leg with Nick, and then he decided to give me a break and took the wrong buoy, so he sort of gave it to me. So we'll see, he'd come back next round.
Not a happy man, we've caught up with you sulking in your tent. Come on, what's happened?
I had a good start. Anders looked like he had a good start. I was on 5-1, pretty overpowered. Basically, I had a very fast first reach. I overtook Anders on the first reach. I was pretty stoked. Went to the jibe mark first, came out first. Basically, I just headed off the way I thought was a buoy I'd got every time before. There was a buoy there, but it was the wrong one, basically. It's too far downwind. I couldn't see Anders. I wasn't concentrating. I was so overpowered. It's so choppy and hard conditions that I was just trying to concentrate on where I was going. I jibe around the mark, and I look upwind and see Anders going to the next mark. So there's not a lot I could do about it then.
the women's battle continued, and conditions got so bad that at one point racing was abandoned. However, the battle raged strong between G680 Jutta Muller and the little Aussie KA15 Jessica Crisp. She took the first place honours. Jutta Muller got the second, Helen Purin third, and Andrea Hoppner bringing up the fourth place. The wind didn't blow on the last day, Anders Bringle didn't get his fifth leg, and the results were set. Nick Baker took the podium for the first place honours by a very slim margin. Nick was delighted.
As you say, it's not many points for the overall for the year. I'm not so worried about that, but it's very, very important for me since I'm a local boy. I live at Shoreham. Last year I failed to win the event over a few mistakes, so I wasn't very happy there. So this year to come back and win it, especially against Anders, who's such a good competitor. We had good battles all the way through to the finish. Today we didn't have so much win, so we couldn't have that final battle. Obviously I was quite happy with that. He wasn't so happy, but we had a really good event all round actually, so I was very happy.
So to confirm the results, Nick Baker takes first, Anders Bringle second, Australian Steve Allen in third, Jamie Hawkins in fourth, and Nick's younger brother Ant takes the fifth place. While in the women, 2 first and a second place for Jessica give her the first place overall. Jutta Muller takes second, Helen Purin in third, Andrea Hoppner in fourth, and Kate Hofhacker a creditable fifth place. So we say farewell to Brighton. The World Tour moves on to Sylt in northern Germany for the next round of the 1994 PBA Windsurfing World Tour.